Let's take a look at the Messianic Secret. Again, we have the Synoptic Gospels. They're all slightly different. Sometimes they differ quite a lot. But let's take a look at what's this whole thing about how people thought that John the Baptist was actually Elijah come back into the world in human form. Then when John the Baptist was dead, they thought that it was Jesus who was Elijah having come back. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. The topic is about the Messianic secret. But let's see what they say in Mark. And Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they told him John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and others one of the prophets. And he asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Christ." And he strictly charged them to tell no one about him. Why is it such a secret? I mean, if Jesus came into the world as Paul's gospel claims to take away people's sins, then why wouldn't you want to broadcast it everywhere? Well, the simple answer is Paul's gospel is very different from the Jewish understanding that a Messiah would be king of the Jews. And that would be in opposition to Roman power. That would be, and the Romans killed or crucified many people for this reason. So that's the reason for this Messianic secret. The gospel authors know this. That's why they have Jesus saying, "Don't tell anybody." He strictly charged them not to tell anyone. Let's look at Matthew chapter 16. It's similar. Who do people say that the Son of Man is? Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Notice Matthew adds in Jeremiah. Jesus could be Jeremiah having come back from the dead. But the significance about Elijah is because Elijah never died in the Old Testament. He was taken up in a whirlwind, and many believe he became immortal. One of only two people in the Old Testament who didn't die. That would be Enoch, Elijah, maybe a third one, Moses, maybe, because they don't know where his grave is. Okay, so in Matthew he said, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Matthew really expands on this much more than in Mark. Matthew says, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. I tell you, you are Peter. Upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Wow, Peter, Jesus gives a major blessing Peter because Peter knows that he's the Christ. But we'll see what happens shortly after this, because then Jesus curses him after he blesses him. So he says, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." And he strictly charged his disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. Again, if people are going around saying that Jesus is the Christ, that is equated with being king of the Jews, and the Romans would come and have him arrested and killed. That's exactly what happens at the end of the Gospels. But for the time being, Jesus keeps telling them strictly not to talk about it with anyone else. Let's look at Luke chapter 9. This is a little different. Okay, now Herod the Tetrarch heard all that was happening, and he was perplexed because it was said by some that John had been raised from the dead, by some that Elijah had appeared, and by others that one of the prophets of old had risen. Herod said, "John I beheaded, but who is this about whom I hear such things?" And he sought to see him. So there's a different story here in Luke. Continuing on, Luke says, similarly, who do the crowd say that I am? They answer John the Baptist, but others say Elijah, others that one of the prophets of old has risen. Ah, mysterious. One of the prophets of old has risen from the dead. Who could that be? This is almost sounds like reincarnation. I mean, they think that Elijah came, well, he would have been immortal in heaven, has come into the world, taken on human form as John the Baptist. Elijah is John the Baptist. Then, after John the Baptist's death, they think that it's Jesus, that Elijah has come back in the form of Jesus. Bizarre indeed. Continuing on in Luke, but who do you say that I am? Peter answered, the Christ of God. He strictly charged and commanded them to tell this to no one, saying, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. This is the Pauline gospel, that Jesus would have to die and rise on the third day. Notice that there's no reaction in Luke at this point in time. He just says he'll have to die and be raised. But in the other Gospels, there is a huge reaction, okay? But before getting to that, we've got this part where he says, the Son of Man comes in the glory of the Father and of the holy angels in Luke. But in Mark, it says he comes, the Son of Man comes in the glory of the Father with the holy angels. Luke just says comes in the glory of them. That might just seem like a small difference, but Luke is taking after the Enoch tradition, the apocryphal book of Enoch, where the Son of Man comes on the clouds with a host of angels, with all the host of saints and angels, apocalyptically. So that is a significant difference. Let's go back to Matthew, where Jesus gives this huge blessing to Peter. Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah. Let's go back to that just quickly here. Blessed are you, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. See, this new gospel of Paul's has to be revealed to people. They can't just see this in the natural. It's like a miraculous thing that they would recognize the new definition of Messiah. But we will see, according to the author of Matthew, Peter is actually still operating out of the old idea of what a Messiah is, to be a conquering king. So this is what happens. We're in Matthew, and now this is verse 21. From that time Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and the chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, Far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan, for you are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. There we go. What is he setting his mind on? So in one instance, he's blessing Peter in a major way, and then in the next instance, he said, oh, you're not getting the idea. The Son of Man has to do this. But Peter was operating from the Jewish mindset where, no, a Messiah is not someone who will be arrested and killed and raised on the third day. That was not the Jewish expectation of a Messiah. I really like to hit that point home, and we will follow up with another video on this.